So this is the million-dollar question. How much is your business worth? So let me caveat this. There's basically two types of companies, really. There is a tech-related company, which is typically high growth and loss-making. And then you have the rest of the, not always loss-making, but quite often. There are some very good ones, which are making money. And they are the prizes. And then you have the other businesses, which are proper businesses, brick and mortar businesses, SMEs, which actually have strong unit economics and are actually making profits. So this is more for the non-tech companies. Non-tech companies are typically valued based upon profits. And the profit metric which people typically use is the EBITDA, which is your earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation, which is basically similar to your free cash flow. How much money you're actually generating before you have to give it away to bankers and other people as well. And in the industry, you typically work off an EBITDA multiple. And this EBITDA multiple goes up and down in cycles. At the moment, we're at a lower end of the EBITDA cycle. And next year, as money comes back into the market with after the election in the US and the economy is beginning to recover, this EBITDA multiple might increase. But at the moment, we are seeing multiples of 5 to 10 times. So that means 5 times your profit to 10 times your profit. And it really depends upon a number of factors. It depends on how stable your business is. If you are quite a volatile business, and you have, let's say, customers who are shorter and one-off, like an e-commerce company, for example, you don't have recurring revenue, then the multiple might be less. If you, on the other hand, you're a software company or a services company, and you have long-term contracts with these companies, with these customers, then you're considered to be more stable, and therefore your multiple will be a little bit higher. The next one is growth. SMEs can, sometimes they can grow 10%, and sometimes they're flat, sometimes they are down a bit. Obviously, the higher your growth, sustainable growth, the better. And so the high growth companies, and some of the tech companies are considered to be high growth, therefore their multiples are higher. But there's nothing wrong with them. Quite often people like to work with companies which are not so high growth. So flat or 10% growth is fine as long as you're quite stable as well, because you're less risky than a high growth technology company. So growth is important. The next one is profitability. Profitability, I mean the margins. If you are a 30% EBITDA margin company, then that's considered to be quite high margin. It means that you add more value out of the revenue which you generate. You take more of that as profit, and so therefore your valuation, you're less likely to be replaced in the value chain if you are a high margin business. If you're a low margin business, for example, a wholesaler, distributor, and you're only making 5 to 10% margins, then you're more likely to be in a commodity type of business, and then it goes back to the stability. You have more risk. So low margin businesses are typically a little bit lower in terms of EBITDA multiple than a high margin business. Strategic value. So if you happen to have a warehouse or a logistics network, or you own a fleet of mopeds in Indonesia, or you have some IP, then that's strategic value, and people will add value on that. So you might have EBITDA multiple plus additional few $1 million basically because you've got some strategic value which nobody else has. And finally, the market and the investors. So it depends on market conditions. Now we're in a bit of a downturn. I wouldn't say we're in a downturn, but we're not really. It's been a little bit flat for the last couple of years. I would say this is definitely a buyer's market. The buyers are calling the shots at the moment. And the sellers, the good people like yourselves, are the ones that are basically saying, well, I want this amount, this much. You're offering this much. Well, I'm in no hurry. I'll just wait a little bit. And then maybe next year, if the market's a little bit better, as the competition increases amongst buyers, then your value might go up. But at the moment, I think we're in a little bit of a low market. But I think that starting from next year, the valuations will start to come up. And then finally, it depends upon the investor type. Strategic investors might pay more, they might pay less. Financial investors might pay more, might pay less. So it really depends upon. Japanese investors might be a little bit more aggressive. US investors, for example, might be a little bit less aggressive. So it really depends upon the investor.